Welcome everyone to a new series, How to Crochet. I'll be teaching you lot all the basics and how to make your own project just like this little guy here. All the supplies I used will be linked in the description, and with that all said, let's get into it, shall we? Now, really quickly, just before we get into it, I want to talk to you a little bit about yarn and hook sizes. The wool I have with me here is some thin acrylic wool, some thick acrylic wool, and some plush wool. And all the hook sizes shown right here. They're not every size, but they're all the ones I have. They're the ones you'll probably use. Now, to deciding what yarn and hook size to use, mainly comes down to three things: what you want to make, how big you want to make it, and personal preference. For instance, if I use this thick yarn with this 6mm hook, my outcome would be a lot bigger is say I use this thin yarn with this 3.5mm hook. For beginners, I would recommend using this thick acrylic yarn, mainly because I find it's really easy to use, it's beginner friendly, and it's easy to work in and see the stitches, which if you don't know what that means, don't worry, you will later in the series. This yarn here, it is good and I like working with these two, but it can be difficult, especially as a beginner sometimes, to work with these, so just keep that in mind. And hook sizes, don't get too caught up in hook sizes. Obviously the bigger the hook, the bigger the outcome's going to be. As long as you choose an appropriate hook size that hooks around the yarn just fine, you should be good. And I don't know if you've noticed yet, but on the back it does say a recommendation for hook size. This one says 6mm. Now if you're making small plushies like me, like this guy for example, I normally do a little bit below the hook size, just because I find it's easier and you generally do that. But overall it doesn't really matter what hook size you use, as long as you can hook around the yarn, obviously. I use a 4.5mm hook for these three, and for this smaller one I normally use a 3.5mm hook. So I hope that's cleared things up for you a bit. Congratulations making it this far in the video, you've passed the boring bit. This is where the fun begins. I hope you all chose your appropriate wool and hook size. I'm using this chunky acrylic wool with this 4.5mm hook. Now, the first thing I'm going to teach you guys is how to do a slip knot. This is how you start any crochet project, and is basics basically. Think of it as a way of tying the yarn to the hook, so then we can use it. I'm going to demonstrate this now. Follow along slowly, and feel free to pause the video if you get stuck. So I'm just going to wrap around my two fingers here and wrap back, making an X shape. Now this is where it does get a bit tricky. This piece here, I need to pull under this piece here. So watching slowly, I'll push this under that piece like that, and I'm going to hold it like that. So this is where I'm at the minute. When you get to this point, you can feel free, as long as you're holding on to this, to remove your fingers. And now I've got kind of a ring shape here. So to tighten this, I've got to pull this yarn. Not this one, that will undo the knot. If you gently pull this, you'll notice here, it tightens up. And now that is your slip knot. And this ring here is where your hook's going to go in, but that's way too loose at the minute. So how to tighten it? You grab this tail end here and gently pull. Remember not to fully seal it, because then you won't be able to put the hook in. Just big enough to put the hook in. And now that is your slip knot, guys. Now I'm just going to show you quickly how you can hold this yarn. There are many ways of doing this, and feel free to experiment with yourself, but I've got to show you two ways that are quite common. So one is to wrap this around your pinky finger like so, and then around your index finger just like that, keeping it quite loose but still a little bit tensed. These two fingers here you just grab on like that, And that is one way of holding it. Let me show you again. Round your pinky finger, and round your index finger, and holding it like that. Or another way of doing it is, instead of wrapping it around your pinky finger, just round that finger and like that. Those are the two ways of holding your yarn. Making a chain. So to do this, we've got to yarn over. So how you do this, bring your hook behind the yarn and over like that. See that, keeping it decently tensed but also quite loose. Let me show you again. Behind the yarn and round, so you hook it. And what you do, you just pull through, just like so. And that is your first chain. So let me show you again. Yarn over and pull through. Just like that. And you can see that is slowly going to make your chain. Now, a problem lots of people face here is they pull this too tightly, yeah? So I yarn over and, oh, it's not going through. That's because this is way too tight. To loosen this, you just gently tug the hook a little bit so it gets looser, and then you can yarn over and pull through. I find it's a lot easier when you yarn over, you're putting the hook in that direction. I find it goes through the hole a lot better. And you can see here, a chain's starting to form. And this can be a foundation to anything really. Keep on yarning over. And that is your first chain. Well done if you got to this point. So, after you've built some chains, there's a few things I would like you to know before we end this. Keep your chain slightly under tension there as you work in and do your chains. Now I'm going to show you how to fasten off now, which is how you finish it. Normally you wouldn't do this for a chain, but this is just to demonstrate. So you yarn over, pull through just like how you would as a chain. Now we gently tug the hook to bring up a loop. Now this we could actually cut. Now we've done this. Just like that. Now we can pull this, pull that, and it creates a knot. And that is fastened off. Congratulations, you have just made your first chain. And in the next episode, I'll show you how to work into these stitches to really bulk up your project and make it look like an actual finished piece. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions, be sure to put them in the comments. I will be sure to answer any questions you might have. Like and subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.